The devil went down to Georgia. He was looking for some souls to steal. Actually, he went down to the Ozarks and he grabbed a ton of them. Netflix is back with season 3 of its original series, Ozark. Will Marty and Wendy Byrde finish or fail in their ever-expanding endeavors? How'd you like that for some alliteration? The short and sweet of the entire show is that the Byrdes, a family from Chicago, inadvertently get mixed up with a drug cartel, and then they are forced to launder money. They move down to the Ozarks, and there they establish a whole bunch of semi-legitimate businesses in order to launder the money, and once that happens, they begin to find themselves deeper and deeper and deeper into their problems. This third season introduces a few new characters, which really increases the drama and the tension of the show, but it also gives moments of breath. It allows us, with these new characters, to slow down just a little bit and experience some things that we may not have necessarily experienced before, or at least we get in a new way this time. I like that it's not all high tension all the time, that there are some sweet and tender moments in this. There are the times, like I said, where we get to catch our breath, where we get to just have a slight letdown of this ever-increasing just anxiety that we're seeing before it ramps right back up again, slaps us around, throws us in the back of the pickup, and goes tearing down the country road to maybe bury us in the hills someplace. The acting is outstanding all the way around. I mean, you feel compassion for those you're supposed to feel compassion towards. You despise those that are despicable. I mean, you root for the ones that should be rooted for at that time, but at the same time, you also find yourself cringing or wanting to slap those people who you were just rooting for. And that's awesome. And that just speaks to the level of the acting ability of all of our characters, that they really dive into these characters and they build rich stories around them. And then they present them in a way where we can relate to them, or that we can utterly hate them or want to see them succeed or fail. But regardless of how we actually feel for them, they're convincing. And they come across in a very real and genuine way. And I think that's what helps make this such a good series. I think one of the standouts in this season is Julia Garner, who plays Ruth. I mean, she is a spitfire. She is so spunky and so not afraid of anything. I mean, she reminds me sometimes of that little dog who doesn't know it's little, who will take on the largest of dogs and just go at it full bore. And it doesn't matter. I don't care that you may be huger than me. Huger, that's not even a word. Anyway, you must be much larger than me, but I'm not afraid of you. And I'm going to stand up and I'm going to do what I feel is right, or at least what my job entails. And that's what she does. And I love her character. Now, she's abrasive most of the time, and her vocabulary is pretty limited to the F word. I mean, that's all she really says a lot of the time. But she's so good. This season is really intense, but I also did watch all 10 episodes back to back. And so it was even that much more intense for me. There was no break in this. I mean, it was 10 hours of awesome, but just insane viewing that, I mean, hey, it grabbed me, it held me, and it made me want to keep watching the next episode and the next episode. And I like that the storyline in this, I mean, good grief, they examine relationships and they push relationships to see how far they can actually go before snapping. And then will they snap? And if they do snap, what happens then? Because of the content, you may think that we get a lot of dark and dingy places, and we do, some of those. But thankfully also, there's a lot of great scenery to be shown in this. I mean, it really makes you want to maybe visit the Ozarks because it's beautiful. Now, if you're staying away from that nasty underbelly part of it, then it's probably a great vacation spot. And I'm curious at what the Ozarks actually, like their visitors bureau, think of this series, because parts of it are just outstanding. I mean, it really makes you want to go. All of the water and just the forest in there, and it absolutely is stunning to look at. And then you have the criminal element, which absolutely I want to stay completely away from. There's still a fair amount of mystery to this series, and I like that there's always that threat of a coming twist. What that does is it makes us just as anxious as the characters. I mean, they're always looking over their shoulder. You can't relax. And luckily, the series does allow us to relax just a little bit, but there's always that underlying tension of, ooh, something's about to happen, I think. Can I relax totally? Do I want to relax totally? No, I don't think I'm going to. Jason Bateman and Linney are great in this. I mean, they're highly dysfunctional, which is really sad to see. But then when you take in all of the circumstances and everything that happens to them, you can kind of understand how that unravels. It's still sad to watch, and you watch sometimes the dissolution of a relationship, and then it builds back up, and we're taken on this roller coaster ride. And that makes it believable because of the intense amount of stress that them as characters are under, that, you know what, there would be breaking points. There would be points where they just argue, or they downright fight, or they hate each other and they don't want to get along. But then there's other times where they absolutely love each other and they work together and they work really well. And each of them is highly intelligent and highly driven, which I think also causes a lot of the strife between them, because they both have wonderful ideas, but they're not always on the same page and thinking in the same direction. As I mentioned, season 3 is 10 episodes. About 10 hours worth of watching. I watched it all at once. And that's also the good and the bad thing about Netflix. I mean, the bad is I've binged the entire series. Now I have to wait who knows how long for season 4. But the good part about that is I'm not frustrated by having to only watch one episode and then wait a whole week to do it. The conclusion of season 3 is probably going to leave you with some questions and even some theories. I mean, it did with me as well. And so if you feel the urge to talk about it in the comments below, you totally can, but let's not spoil it for anybody who hasn't seen the entire season yet or is just new to the series or whatever that is. So put like spoiler alert, then put a bunch of line breaks in there, something like that, so that your discussion, your theories, your thoughts of what the ending meant isn't right at the top, so people don't just accidentally stumble on that. There is sex, nudity, almost never ceasing profanity, and some brutal graphic violence. I give season 3 of Ozark 4.5 out of 5 couches. So are you a fan of the series? Do you have a favorite character? Let me know who that is in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.